Hey, it's Yay for Yarn, and today I'm going to show you how to make the popsicle bag on your Addi knitting machine. So this bag is actually relatively simple to construct. It's just made of flat tubes. So what I mean when I say flat tubes is, here is my fourth tube, and it's just a tube, and we're laying it flat and treating it as though it were a flat piece instead of as if it were a tube, even though it is a tube. So what this does is this gives us a double-sided flat panel, in a sense, that will, be sturdier to work with as a bag because we've got a double thick layer of knitting. So the first step is to pick out your colors. I have 4 different colors here and a coordinating trim color. So in each of your 4 main colors, you're going to need to knit on your Addi knitting machine a tube that is 90 rows long. This is worsted weight yarn, by the way. So I've got 4 tubes that were 90 rows long. And now what we're going to do, after we've knit our tubes, is work a row of single crochet edging around each one to make a flat rectangle. So if you can see this yellow one right here, it does look a little bit wiggly around the edges because it hasn't been blocked yet, but I've got the beige running as a single crochet trim around all 4 edges of my flat tube, so it's now become like our double-sided flat panel, and it's a big flat rectangle. So you're going to need 4 of these big flat rectangles. So I'm going to show you how to take your 90 row tube and work the single crochet around the edges to get it to this point. So I like to start on the top edge of the tube where we picked up the stitches off the machine. So I'm going to find this tail where we have the beginning of our round, and we're going to turn our tube. So let's say it was even turned this way. We want to find that tail, and we want to take that part and fold it. So I've got the very last stitch that the tail goes through and the first stitch that it goes through. I'm going to fold them up against each other like that, and then twist my tube so that that folded edge is going to run down along the side. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get your crochet hook. You want to use a crochet hook size that's appropriate for the gauge of the knitting. So you basically want a crochet hook size that's going to give you a single crochet similar in size to your knit stitches, so that you don't have the single crochet either pulling it too tight or ruffling the edge if it's too big. So I've got my contrasting trim yarn. I'm going to leave about a 6-inch tail, and as we twisted our tube so that these 2 stitches, the last stitch that the yarn goes through and the first one, are on this side edge, we're going to, as you can see right here, this tail is coming out of this last stitch that the tail yarn went through. I'm going to insert it into the first stitch that the tail yarn went through and the last stitch that the tail yarn went through, not catching that tail yarn that is going through all the stitches. I'm going to catch my trim yarn with the hook. I'm going to pull it through those 2 stitches and chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet in those same 2 stitches again. So now I'm going to go to the next stitch that is on the side facing me where the yarn is running through. So here's the stitch I just worked into. I'm going to insert into this one, and then I'm going to go to the back side and insert into the next one on the back. Now I'm right-handed crocheter, so I'm going from right to left, but if you're left-handed, then you would be looking for the next stitch on your right. I'm looking for the next stitch to the left because I'm right-handed. So I've got the next stitch to my left on the front and the next stitch to my left on the back, and then I've got that tail yarn that I'm crocheting over, and I'm going to single crochet through those 2 stitches. So again, I'm going to go to the next stitch on my left and insert my crochet hook. I want to carry the tail yarn from the trim and go to the next stitch to my left on the back of the tube, single crochet through those layers. So I'm going to keep doing that across, inserting into the next stitch to my left on the front and the next stitch to my left on the back, and single crochet through both of those layers. And I'm going to keep doing that across my tube until I get to basically to the other side of this edge, this corner over here. And this is essentially closing up the end of the tube to help turn it into that flat double thick rectangle. So here I am at the other side. I've got 2 stitches left. There's the one on the front and the one on the back. I'm going to single crochet through both of those, and then I'm going to single crochet in those same stitches, the same space, 2 more times for a total of 3 single crochet in those last 2 layered stitches. And that's going to help turn our corner. But before we totally turn the corner, we're going to get rid of this strand of yarn that runs through all the stitches by pulling it out through the stitches on the back and through the stitches on the front. Like so. So we will weave this in later, but for now it's out of the way so we can work the rest of our edging. Now, this part is actually kind of the easier part, because if you smooth out your tube so that you have one knit column running up the entire edge, if you turn that so that the edge is facing up, it looks just like a row of single crochet, the top of a row of crochet would look like. So we're just going to insert the hook as if this side edge were a row of crochet and work into all of those stitches. So it looks just like a row of crochet with a strand on the front, a strand on the back. And we're just going to single crochet across this long side edge as if the loops on the side of our tube were a row of crochet. And you just want to make sure that you're flattening it out all the way down the edge so that you're continuously working in the same column of stitches and not twisting your tube any. So I'm just going to keep single crocheting across, working into this column of knit stitches as though it were a row of crochet until I get down to the next corner. Alright, so I am almost to the corner here. I have one more stitch left. All that's left is now the stitches that are from the cast on that have the yarn threaded through them. So we're going to rotate our panel again, and we're going to work across this bottom cast on edge the same way that we worked across the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that first stitch on the front and insert the hook into that, and then we're going to take the first stitch on the back. Now, one thing about working into the cast on edge is that you're going to have to pull on that cast on yarn. You're going to have to pull up on it sometimes to bring the stitches out so you can actually insert into them. So because this is the first one, we're going to work 3 single crochets into that space to turn the corner, like so. So we're again going to follow the cast on yarn and pull up on it to get to the next stitch on the left. And we're going to do the same thing on the back to get to the next stitch on the left on the back, and single crochet through both of those together. And then again on the front and on the back, and single crochet them together. And we're just going to keep doing this all the way across, single crocheting the 2 layers of stitches together and making sure that we don't catch the cast on yarn or split the cast on yarn in our work. Alright, so we are back around to this very last stitch. We're going to single crochet through those last 2 layered stitches a total of 3 times so we can turn our corner. And again, we're going to pull out that cast on yarn Alright, so now that that cast on yarn is gone from our stitches, we will weave it in later, but we're going to again lay our flat tube down, smooth it out so that we have a single column of stitches going up this edge, and we're again going to treat it as though it were a row of crochet and insert the hook as if we were working into a row of crochet, and single crochet in each of those stitches along this edge until we get back up to our first corner where we started. Alright, so we are back at the corner where we started. We're going to pull that bind off tail out of the way, and once we get back up to the top, we're going to work another single crochet in the same space where our first single crochet was. Then that is the end of our crochet trim, but we need to tie off, and we need to leave enough length in our tail that we leave so that we can sew the panels together. So I'm going to leave a good yard or more of a yarn tail, but instead of joining into the first part of this round of trim, I'm going to pull on the loop on my hook until the tail comes totally out. And I'm going to thread the end of it into my yarn needle. And we're going to recreate the look of the top edge of a single crochet over this chain one that we started with. So I'm going to bring my yarn needle up under and insert it into that first single crochet of the round as if we were working into it to crochet into it from front to back. I'm going to pull it through. Now I'm going to come back over here to where my tail yarn comes from, and we'll be inserting it into not only directly down through the top of the stitch, but through this strand of yarn that runs across the back of the stitch, and through this loop of yarn that is the top of our chain one. And then we're going to pull that through. So we have created the look of the top of a single crochet over that chain one. So now it just looks like 3 single crochet, and it's smooth and seamless with no visible join. So I'm just going to pick up a strand or two of yarn on the back of that stitch, and I'm going to knot my tail yarn. And we're not going to weave this in because, as I said, we're going to use it later. But what we are going to do is we're going to get rid of these pink yarn tails that are from the cast on and the picking it up off the machine. So what we're going to do is just take the crochet hook, insert it about somewhere between 6 to 8 inches down between the 2 layers of knitting, and I like to kind of wiggle it to make sure that I'm not catching any of the knitting, and bring it up to where that yarn tail is coming from, and we're just going to pull it to the inside between those layers and trim the extra, and then do the same thing on the other end. So that is how we are going to prepare our panels for assembling the bag. And as you can see, this is a little bit wavy along the edges because this has not been blocked. So I'm going to go ahead and steam block all of my panels, giving them a little bit of a lengthwise stretch so that it will all lay smooth and flat before we sew the bag together. Alright, so now that I have blocked my rectangles, I have arranged them kind of in a windmill type of pattern. I've got my purple one going up this way. I have all the corners with the yarn tails in the center, as I always started by single crocheting across the bind off edge and then going down around the side, the bottom, and then back up to this top right hand corner. So I've rotated all of my rectangles so that those yarn tails are all in the center. I've got my purple one, so this is the top edge of the purple one, and it's going this way. Here's the top edge of the blue, it's going to the left. Top edge of the yellow is over here, and the rest of it is going down. The top edge of the pink is right here, and it is going to the right. So what I've got is, if you remember, I left a long tail of yarn when I finished up my single crochet round, it's on my yarn needle for the pink. So we're going to start by sewing this up. Now what I want to do first is sew the plus sign seam here first before we sew the sides up. So I'm going to take the pink yarn and I'm going to whip stitch this single crochet edge to this single crochet edge from the center out. So then I can take the purple yarn and whip stitch this edge right here to this blue edge. Then I can take the yarn that's coming off of the blue and whip stitch this blue edge here to this yellow edge. Then I can take the yellow yarn and whip stitch it to this pink edge. So my pink yarn tail from the pink rectangle is coming out of that knot where we tied a knot in the center stitch. If you remember, we put 3 stitches. One of them was a chain that we made look like a single crochet in the center, and we have a total of what looks like 3 single crochets in that corner. So we're going to first insert into the center of those 3 single crochets, and we're going to do the same thing in the rectangle that we're attaching it to. So I'm going to the corner of the purple, and I'm taking that center single crochet and the center single crochet from the pink, and I'm going to whip stitch those 2 together. So now I'm going to come up here and take the next single crochet on the purple edge and stitch it to the next single crochet on the pink edge. I'm going to take the next single crochet on the purple edge and the next single crochet on the pink edge, and we're just doing a simple whip stitch to seam these rectangles together. So I'm just going to whip stitch these 2 single crochet edges together until I get to the corner over here of the purple, and then I'm going to stop for the moment. Alright, so I've only got a couple stitches left until this purple corner. And here it is. This is the center stitch of that 3 single crochets that we put in the corner. So I'm going to stop right there. We're not going to stop permanently, but we're going to stop whip stitching for the moment. I'm just going to take the needle out of that yarn and set it aside for the moment, because now we're going to attach the next one. So I'm going to take that yarn needle and thread my yarn that's coming off of the purple rectangle corner into the yarn needle, and then I'm just going to start whip stitching the purple to the blue, again starting with that center single crochet of the 3 that go into each corner on both sides, and I'm just going to whip stitch until I get to this blue corner right here, and then we're going to stop for the moment. So here we are at the corner again. I'm going to stop, take the yarn out of the yarn needle and save it for later. So now I'm going to take the yarn that's coming off of this blue rectangle, and I'm going to attach the yellow to the blue, starting in that center single crochet of the corner and working this way, and I'm going to stop when I get to this corner of the yellow. Alright, so that seam is done for now. Now I'm going to take this last yarn from the yellow square or yellow rectangle, and I'm going to use it to whip stitch this edge to this pink one, stopping down here at the corner. Alright, so we've got our little windmill shape here with our rectangles coming together in the center, and now we're going to sew up the sides of the bag. So what I'm going to do is push this forward so you can see better how we're going to do this. So what we need to do is take this edge and we're going to turn it and sew it to this edge. So we're basically just bringing it together like this, and it's going to create kind of a corner on the bottom of the bag. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep whip stitching these 2 edges together past the corner and all the way up the side. And as you can see, if I bring this over to as far as it'll go, there will still be a section of this pink one that will not have the yellow sewn to it. That's supposed to be that way. So don't try to stretch this to meet the length of the pink, because it's not going to. So we're just sewing every pink single crochet to a yellow single crochet. We're not you know, stretching it and trying to make it fit, because it's not supposed to go to the end of the pink. It's only supposed to come to as far as, you know, as far as it'll go, putting every pair of single crochets together. So we're putting every single crochet on this side to a single crochet on this side. And it's going to stop about right here. So I'm just going to take it like this and continue whip stitching up the side. So here we are at the corner, and at this point I am going to stop and tie off. I've stitched through that center single crochet of the 3 that are in that corner. So I'm going to go through that same pair of stitches again, and then I'm going to bring the yarn to the back, and I'm going to tie a knot. And I'm just going to leave that tail for the moment because we're going to crochet over it later. So that's what that seam looks like. We're basically going to repeat that and do the same thing again with all the rest of the seams. So I'm going to take this piece of yarn and use it to sew the pink to the purple. So I'm going to, again, here's the corner of the purple. I'm just going to bend that pink one around that corner and sew it to this edge. And this one is still going to have a gap here where it doesn't, you know, it doesn't stretch all the way to the edge of the purple. It's not supposed to. So I'm going to do the same thing again to just whip stitch these 2 edges together till I get to the end of the pink strip. Alright, so I'm at the corner. I'm going to take another stitch through those 2 single crochet and bring the yarn to the back to tie off. So now we have 3 colors here. We have a yellow attached to the pink, attached to the purple. Now we're going to pull the purple over around the corner of the blue and do the same thing again. So now we have this weird looking bunch of pieces that are all joined together. So here we've got the yellow, the pink, the purple, and the blue. So now we're going to turn it over and bring the yellow and the blue together like this to complete the structure of the bag. So this is the same thing we just did basically, but we're just sewing kind of the beginning to the end, and we're going to take this piece of yarn down here and whip stitch this one all the way up to the top of this corner. Alright, so here is our finished bag structure. So what we're going to need to do now is decide which colors are going to go on the front and on the back. So what I'm going to do is rotate it, because I want my pink and yellow on the one side and my purple and blue on the other side. The other colors will kind of appear, like the purple kind of appears down here in the corner on the pink and yellow side, and the yellow appears on the blue and purple side. But you just want to, you know, choose which main colors you want on each side and rotate your bag so that it stays so that it's flat with the colors that you want facing on one side on that side and the other colors on the other side. So as you can see, this is a pretty decent sized bag. This is actually a rather large tote bag. So now we're going to work the edging across the top and the handles. So we have kind of a peak and valley type of bag at the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to work a little bit of an edging all the way around, and then we're going to add handles that come from this point to this point. So I'm going to take my trim color yarn, which is the beige, and I'm going to take my crochet hook, and I'm going to start at one of the peaks or the tips of the corners that come up, and I'm going to find that center single crochet, and I'm going to insert my hook. Alright, so now I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop of yarn, and I'm going to chain 1, and as we did when we were single crocheting around the edges of our rectangles, I'm going to work another single crochet in the same corner stitch, and then I'm going to single crochet across the top edge of this pink strip, working over the tail so that it won't have to be woven in later, and I'm going to keep single crocheting until I get to the valley So you're going to have to rotate your bag to work around it, but you just want to remember which colors you chose for the front and for the back so that you know where to put the handles. So now that we're almost to the corner, as you can see right here in our corner, we have the knot where we tied off with our yarn tail, and I'm just going to trim that yarn tail to about 5-6 inches. And as you can see, here is that stitch that went across that pair of stitches to join the corner stitch to the side edge of this purple. I'm going to work a single crochet 2 together in those spaces. Even though they're whip stitched through, I still want to make sure that they are attached to the edging. So I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop from the first side, and then insert yarn over and pull up a loop on the second side, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. So now I'm going to single crochet up the edge of the purple until I get to that top corner, the next peak. So here we are at the corner. I've got 3 single crochets in that corner. I'm going to single crochet in the first one, and then in that center single crochet, I'm going to work 3 single crochet. So there we've reached that peak and turned the corner. So here's what our first section looks like. We have our peak up here, and the valley in the middle, and then the next peak is up here. So I'm again going to turn the work so that I can have the correct side facing me. I'm going to single crochet down to this valley, work that single crochet 2 together, back up to the next peak, and work the 3 single crochet in the corner, down to the next valley, do the single crochet 2 together, up to the next peak, and do 3 single crochet in the corner, and etc. until I get back to where I started. So I'm all the way back to the corner. I've got 1 single crochet left, and then instead of slip stitching into the top of this first chain, we're going to do an invisible slip stitch. That's just my personal preference. If you want to do a regular slip stitch, you can. So to do that, we're going to remove the hook from the loop that was on the hook, move the working yarn to the back, and insert the hook into the stitch we're working into, which is that chain 1, from back to front. We're going to bring that loop around and pull it through from front to back, like so. So there's our invisible slip stitch. So now what we're going to do is the round where we add our handles. So to do this, we're going to start with a chainless starting single crochet, which is very simple. We're just going to stretch the loop on the hook a little bit and single crochet in the same stitch that we did our slip stitch into. And then I'm going to single crochet down to the valley. Now remember, this side right here, the pink and yellow, is one side. So the handle is going to connect from here to here. And so I'm going to single crochet down to this side and back up here, and then we're going to start making a handle. Now if you had started your single crochet up here, and this is where your round ended, then you would just start making the handle from here. But because I started over here on this pink one and the handle ends here, it doesn't start here, it's going to start, the next handle is going to start on the purple, go across to the blue, then we're going to come to the yellow and make a handle across to the pink. So I'm going to single crochet down to the valley that's on the side of the bag, and we're almost there. Now I want to point out one thing in particular. This single crochet 2 together that we worked into that valley was to, have an extra join between the 2 panels here that we had whip stitched together. Now, because we're working into a valley, we want to continue that shape. We're going to work a single crochet 3 together. So I'm going to work up to the point where I've got 1 single crochet before that center single crochet 2 together that we worked in the row below. So I've got 1 single crochet and then that single crochet 2 together. So I'm going to single crochet 3 together by inserting into the first single crochet, pulling up a loop, inserting into the single crochet 2 together and pulling up a loop, and then I'm going to insert into the next single crochet after that and pull up a loop. So I've got loops coming out of 3 different stitches, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of them to make a single crochet 3 together. So now I'm going to single crochet up to the next peak, and here we are. I'm going to wait until I get to that center corner single crochet. So we had that 3 single crochet in 1 right there. I worked into the center one, and now we're going to start making the handle. So I'm going to turn it over because this is the first handle we're going to do. This is the handle that connects the top of the purple peak to the top of the blue peak. So what we need to do is kind of bridge the gap and make it long enough that it's, easy to carry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work some foundation single crochet. If you're not comfortable with this, that's okay. You can just chain instead and then work an extra row of single crochet at the end. But I'm going to work the foundation single crochet. So what I'm going to do is insert into the same stitch that I just worked in. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. I'm going to yarn over and pull through just that first loop. So that has essentially created the equivalent of a chain stitch. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the second two, which creates the single crochet. So foundation single crochet is working the foundation chain and the single crochet all at once. So that first step creates what the equivalent of the chain stitch is, and then the second step creates the single crochet. So to do another one, I'm going to turn that foundation single crochet upside down. I'm going to insert into the bottom two loops of that foundation single crochet that I just did, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we have two loops on our hook again, so I'm going to yarn over, pull through one, which creates the equivalent of a chain stitch, yarn over and pull through two, which creates the single crochet. So again, I'm going to turn it over so I can see the bottom, insert into the bottom two loops of the foundation single crochet and pull up a loop. I'm going to yarn over, pull through one loop to create the equivalent of the chain, and yarn over and pull through the other two to make the single crochet. So I'm going to do this basically until my handle is the length that I want it to be. You're going to want to count as you go and count again when you're finished to make sure that you know how many you did so you can make the other handle match. So far I've done 3. I'm going to keep doing the foundation single crochets until my handle is the length that I want. Alright, so that's about the length I want my handle to be. I've done 50 foundation single crochet. So now we're going to join this to the blue peak over here. And to do that, if I were to just single crochet into this corner, there would be a little gap here where the bottom of the foundation single crochet would not connect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert into, as you can see again, we have those 3 corner stitches. I'm going to insert into the center one, and then I'm going to bring my foundation single crochet up here and insert into the bottom of it as well, and then single crochet through both of those layers. So that has connected my foundation single crochet to the rest of the work. So now I'm going to single crochet down to the valley, and again, once we get to that valley, we're going to stop with 1 stitch left before the single crochet 2 together from the row below, and we're going to single crochet 3 together by inserting into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert into the single crochet 2 together, yarn over, pull up a loop, and insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So now I'm going to single crochet back up the next section up to the top of the peak where we're going to begin our next handle. So we're going to stop when we've worked into the center stitch of those 3 corner stitches, and we're again going to do the same thing to make the next handle. We're going to insert into the same stitch that we just worked in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So there's our first foundation single crochet that is connected at the bottom to the one we just worked. Insert into the bottom 2 loops of the foundation single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So I'm going to work again a total of 50 foundation single crochet. If you worked a different number, then it doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that you have the same number as you did on the other handle. So there is my 50 foundation single crochet. I'm going to join it now to the top of this pink peak right here. And because I've already worked a single crochet in that corner space, I can't really work another one. So what I'm going to do is bring the hook to the back, insert it into the bottom 2 loops of that foundation single crochet from before, and through that corner stitch from the previous row that we worked our first stitch into. And I'm going to kind of slip stitch backwards through those layers. And then I'm going to bring my yarn through the back again and stretch my loop. And then I'm going to work the invisible slip stitch again into that first stitch that I put into the corner when I started. Like so. It's not totally invisible because of the way we had to join the foundation single crochet, but it is still pretty close to being invisible. So now we're going to start working a couple more rounds of single crochet to widen our handle. So I'm going to start by stretching my loop a little bit and working a chainless starting single crochet in the same stitch. I'm going to single crochet down to the valley, and again I'm going to stop until one stitch before that single crochet 3 together from the row below. I'm going to insert into the first stitch, insert into the single crochet 3 together and into the stitch following, and single crochet those 3 together. And then I'm going to single crochet along my previous row of single crochet, and I'm just going to keep single crocheting all the way up to the peak, past it, over the top of the handle, and back down the next side until I get to the next valley down here. So I am single crocheting all the way up across the top of the handle, down the other side to the next valley. So here we are again at the valley. I'm going to do that single crochet 3 together in the center. I'm going to flip the bag over, and again I'm going to single crochet all the way up across, over the top of the handle that's on this side, and back down to where I started my row. Alright, so we are getting down to the beginning of the round again. I'm single crocheting in that last foundation single crochet, and I'm again going to invisible slip stitch in the top of that first single crochet of the round. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you this ahead of time so that it makes more sense. I've got my 2 handles up here. They're kind of going to lay like that and create a nice diamond shape hole here where between the handles and the bag. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some strength to the handles and the top edge of the bag all the way around by putting some cotton clothesline inside of the handle. You won't see this, but I'm going to sew this inside of the handle. So what we're going to do is work several more rounds of the round that we just did, where we single crochet to the valley, single crochet 3 together in the valley, and then single crochet all the way across the handle in the back down to the other valley, single crochet 3 together in that valley, and then single crochet all the way back to where we started. I'm going to repeat that same round a couple more times until my handle up here is wide enough this way that it can fold around the clothesline completely, so that I'll be able to sew it shut around the clothesline. So I have made it all the way back around the top of my bag a couple times. I have a total of 3 rows of single crochet, not including the foundation single crochet that we made our handle from. So now I'm going to add the clothesline part, and this is going to add a lot of structure and strength to the handle and the top edge of the bag, so that it's not stretching out of shape when it's full of stuff, and it will be able to hold up the weight of whatever you put in it. So what has been done to the end of this clothesline here is that I had wrapped it in a piece of Scotch tape and cut the end. So if you can see that, there's about half of a piece of Scotch tape wrapped around it, and that is holding the end together so that it doesn't totally fall apart and fray. So when you measure if your handle is wide enough for the clothesline, you just want a snug fit. You don't want it to be, you know, overlapping any, or, you know, having extra room, because you want a snug fit around that clothesline so it's not shifting in there. So if I pinch that shut, my clothesline, you know, you have to really pull on it to get it to move, so we know it'll be secure inside that handle. So what I'm going to do is turn my bag over so that the inside is facing me, because it's going to be easier to work on this from the inside. And what I'm going to do is lay the clothesline inside my handle on top of this flat piece. And I'm going to leave a couple inches extra sticking out in the other direction so I can join the ends of this later. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold the handle over itself around that clothesline, and we're going to slip stitch the edges together. So we want to make sure that the yarn is coming from a good place so that this will work. So what I'm going to do is bring my yarn behind or through that handle so that it is in a better place to slip stitch with. So I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to insert it into the next stitch on the top, and I'm going to insert it, I'm going to pull my yarn out of the way so it's not blocking anything. I'm going to insert it into the bottom of that first foundation single crochet, and that's why we did the foundation single crochet, is because when you do that, the bottom edge of it is just like working into a row of regular single crochet, even though that's the bottom edge. So I'm going to slip stitch through all of those layers. I'm going to pull it kind of tight because that's my first one. I want it to be flat and secure. And then we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to insert into the top of the handle and into the next stitch on the bottom of the handle and slip stitch all the way through. Insert into the next one on the top and the next one on the bottom, slip stitch all the way through. And I'm going to keep doing this, just slip stitching the handle around the clothesline until I get to the end of the handle, because we're going to also include the clothesline all the way around the top edge of the bag for structure and stability. So I will show you how we go about it around the edge of the bag in the valleys and stuff once we get past the end of the handle. So I've made it across the handle the rest of the way, and now we're going to work our way down into this valley and then go back up the other side to the other handle. So what we're going to be doing is, as you can see right here, we've been working into this foundation single crochet edge, and we want to follow that same line and work into the row that is kind of on the same level as that, but also, as you can see here, we've got 2 rows of single crochet here on our trim that goes underneath the handle on the front of the bag, and then we've got more than that on the valley sides. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, because we want it to match, we had 2 rows of single crochet in our trim, so we're going to be working across the top of that second row as we slip stitch in. So here's the first stitch of the top edge, and then I'm going to go down here and work into the same stitch further down in the top of the second row of single crochet trim, and slip stitch, insert into this top edge, and then insert into the top of that second row and slip stitch. And we're going to keep doing that across just as we did on the handle until we have about 3 stitches until that center single crochet 3 together in the valley. So here is the top of our single crochet 3 together. Then we want to leave 1, 2, 3 stitches so I can work into 1 more. And what we need to do here is, because we decreased stitches, if we just fold this straight down, it's not going to have the same number of stitches as that row that we're working into down here. So what we need to do is insert into, I've got 3 regular stitches left before that single crochet 3 together. We're going to insert into the first one, then we're going to come down here to the row we're working into, but we're not going to insert into the first or the next stitch that is in that row. We're going to skip that one and go to the second one and slip stitch. Then we're going to insert into the next one on the top, and then we're going to come down here to the row we've been working into. We're going to skip the next one and go into the second one. And then same here, we're going to insert into the top. Then we're going to come down here to the row we've been working into, skip the next one and work into the second one. Then here's our single crochet 3 together. We're going to insert into that and then work into the next stitch down here in our row, which was our decrease down here on that row. So we're going to slip stitch through that. That is the kind of the bottom of the valley now. So next we need to go back up the other side. So again, we're going to insert into the top, and then we're going to follow the same row that we've been working into, skip the next stitch and work into the second one. Then we're going to do the same, insert into the top, skip the next stitch in this row down here and work into the second one. And then one more time, inserting into the top, skip the next stitch in this row and work into the second one. So now we have compensated for the shape of that valley by, pulling some of these stitches down here closer together so that it matches the number of stitches at the top. So now we're going to keep working through this side of the valley, inserting into the top, going into the next stitch down in this row below that we've been working into, and we're not skipping any anymore. We're just working into every single one all the way across until we get to the next handle. So here's my last stitch of the valley side. So now we get to work across the handle again, just like we did on the other side, working into the stitch at the top and then the bottom of that foundation single crochet at the bottom of our handle and slip stitching through those layers. So inserting into the stitch at the top and into the bottom of that foundation single crochet at the bottom edge of the handle. So I'm going to keep doing this all the way across till I get to the other side of the handle. Alright, so I've made it back to the end of this handle. I've got two handles now, and I just have to get across this section here. So I'm basically going to do the same thing I did on the other valley side until I get almost to where the other end of my clothesline is. So here we are, we're about to join the ends of our clothesline. And what we need to do to make sure that this end does not unravel, as I mentioned before, this end was cut after it had already been wrapped in Scotch tape to keep the ends from fraying. So I'm going to do the same thing on this end. So I'm going to approximate where I'm going to cut it, which is going to be right there. I'm going to roll a piece of tape around that area where I'm going to cut it. I'm just going to stretch the loop that was on my hook because the hook fell out, so I don't want it to unravel. So what we're going to do is kind of lay those two together. We want to cut exactly where the end of the original piece is so that these two ends can butt up against each other. So I'm just going to take my scissors and line them up where I want them to be. And then I'm just going to cut across the whole thing. These scissors are kind of small for this, but they still work. And then we're going to take another piece of tape and tape the two ends together. So I'm just going to pull on this one to give it a little slack so I can reach it better. And I'm going to put the ends up against each other and tape them together. Just wrapping that tape around the ends to hold them together. So now that the ends are taped together, then we can slip stitch across this gap to close up the rest of our edge here. So there we go, there's one final stitch that I'm going to work into, which is the stitch from the very beginning, the first stitches that we went through. I'm going to go through them a second time. So that is the last of our slip stitches. We can now cut the yarn, insert through those layers to pull them through to the top and tie off. So now I'm going to take my yarn needle and thread that tail back in to weave it in, because the crochet hook is not going to fit in here along with the clothesline. So that is the last step of our bag. It is now finished, and because we put that clothesline all through the top edge and the handles will not be able to stretch out as would normally happen with a crocheted handle on a bag, because that clothesline keeps it from stretching and provides a lot of structure and stability so that the bag can carry the weight of whatever you put in it. So here's what the finished colors look like. The base of the bag is kind of almost square like that. So it's not gonna lay totally flat on my table here because it's meant to hold stuff and not to just lay flat. But as you can see, I've got my yellow, my pink, and my purple on this side. And then if I flip it over, I've got the purple, the blue, and the yellow on the other side. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you make this project, let me know how it turns out for you in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, making sure you click the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of new videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.